Okay, I haven't done a video in this style for a while where I show the actual chart of what's going on. I've just been doing these videos where I'm sitting and talking, but, let's give this a try. Today Mercury stations retrograde, and Mercury retrograde is probably one of the most commonly talked about astrological phenomenon, and this is probably because the effects of it are some of the more noticeable effects. Probably because we live in an age where technology and has dominated quite a bit, right? And Uranus is often described as a planet that has to do with technology, that has to do with breakthroughs of scientific understanding. And Mercury is the thinker, the communicator, the negotiator. And when Mercury stations retrograde, first of all, what happens is that there's a slowing down, right? Mercury, one of the things that I think it's a bit difficult to just see when you're looking at charts is that the planets don't always move at the same speed. And when a planet stations retrograde, there's a process of slowing down, right? And Taurus is often, Taurus is symbolized by the bull, right? And the bull, of course, a bull can charge when it's angry, right? But a bull is typically, bulls and cows are typically, when we think about them, we think of them standing in the field, right? And Taurus season, compared to Aries season, like I mentioned in my previous video that I do tropical astrology. Aries season is usually like this kind of burst of energy pushing forward as the plants blossom and bloom, and there's a kind of a yang energy to Aries, right? There's the kind of the yang being the hot, being the active force, right? The active force that's hot, that wants to go and do things, that wants to activate, that wants to start some shit, that kind of energy, right? And so you don't have to, that can show up in men, it can show up in women. We don't have to do a gender thing on that necessarily, but we can understand what the active energy is like, right? And the Taurus is a yin sign, and the which is the passive energy, right? So Mercury in Taurus is more passive than it would be in a yang sign, right? And it is the season of Taurus, which we have just entered. As you can see, the sun is at the 0-1 degree of Taurus. Is it's usually the spring season is a little bit more idle, right? That there may be more of this push ahead to let's go and do stuff, let's go and start stuff. Now that it's Taurus season, there is naturally a tendency to slow down, there's a tendency to relax, there's a tendency to take it easy. And unfortunately, I know unfortunately, I shouldn't judge the weather. You know what I mean? Like, it's rainy, it's been a cold and rainy April so far, but in previous times when it's been hot, dry Aprils, usually that means we have huge forest fires, right, in the summer, right, in BC. So if, in the sense that if it's cold and rainy and not dry and hot, then that is that may be a sign that we don't have to worry about forest fires as much. But I don't know. Don't hold me on this one. We'll have to see what happens. I'm hoping this would mean that maybe less forest fires, at least from the weather where I live. But I'm not going to get too much into that now with the astrology. But that said, Uranus is also a planet that, sometimes has to do with natural disasters like earthquakes and things like that, right? So, and Taurus being fixed things, right? The things that are very fixed. The one thing I'll have to say about this is that Mercury is stationed retrograde here at 15 degrees of Taurus, in very close to Uranus here, right? And so this Mercury retrograde is characteristically more Uranian than other Mercury retrogrades, right? So this is a unique flavor of Mercury retrograde that I'm trying to get across here in this video, right? And so there could be things that are either technological breakthroughs, there could be breakthroughs of communication, breakthroughs of negotiation, breakthroughs of mediation, breakthroughs of scientific discovery. But in this particular moment, what we have is a slowing down moment. The breakthrough feels like it's on the verge of a breakthrough, but you have to realize that Mercury is now slowing down and is going to go the other direction, right? And meanwhile, Venus is the ruler of Taurus, and Venus is in Mercury's sign, right? Gemini. So when we have a situation like this, in traditional astrology, this is known as a mutual reception. And a mutual reception is a good thing in the sense that normally when these planets are, positioned like this, that a sign does not communicate that well with the sign immediately beside it, but if they have this mutual reception going on, there's better communication between Gemini and Taurus. So and with the Mercury going retrograde, and also the fact that we've just completed the eclipse cycle in Taurus. The south, you can notice that thing that looks like a horseshoe. That horseshoe is the north node. The north node is going to retrograde. Well, no, it isn't retrograde. The north node moves in a different motion than the planets. The north node is heading into Aries, right? And so we just had a solar eclipse at the anaretic degree of Aries, and that is initiating a new eclipse cycle that is going to take place in the sign of Aries. And so it's marking the completion of a process that has been going on for the signs of Taurus and Scorpio. However, the lunar eclipse in Scorpio has yet to happen. That will happen at the full moon, and I made a video about my thoughts on that yesterday, if you want to check that out. So what I'd like to show you now is I will progress in time to illustrate what the Mercury retrograde looks like. So as we move back day by day here, we can see Mercury moving backwards from the 15 to the 14, and the Sun moving closer and closer to Mercury. And as we get closer to the Sun, maybe I can mention something about the decans, that the middle of Taurus is a decan. Well, you know what? I'm not going to get into that now. It's too much. My friend Spencer Michaud does a lot of work with the decans. I'm sure he's already been going into that in great detail. Maybe you can check his videos out. I'm just kind of doing this off the top of my head, but it's on my mind anyways, what the decans represent. Maybe I'll go into further detail later. But just to carry on here, we're getting a Sun and Mercury conjunction, which is known as a cazimi. While it's a retrograde cazimi, which marks a certain phase of the synodic cycle, Mercury is doing this pass of the Sun, and when a cazimi marks a kind of a death and a rebirth moment, but the thing about it is that the cazimis happen when the planet's retrograde and the planet is in direct motion, and personally, to me, it kind of makes more sense to see the rebirth of the process is happening when the planet is direct rather when retrograde. But anyway, this is still a critical point of the Mercury retrograde cycle, the Mercury Sun cazimi in Taurus at 11 degrees, and that's happening at the 1st of May, the first of the month there. And so let's just keep going with this. Mercury keeps heading backwards, the Sun keeps heading forwards. And then eventually the Sun comes and conjuncts with Uranus here in Taurus at May 19th. And the thing about this too is that the whole idea of Cazimi is something from ancient astrology, and I'm not sure if I would apply the idea of Cazimi to Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, or any of these dwarf planets that people may use. I don't know if that applies. So I'm just gonna, but a Sun-Uranus conjunction is still a thing. Does that mean the same rules? Does that seem the same principle as a Sun-Mercury conjunction? Or is it a different class of order because we're dealing with a new order of planets? I'm just going to leave that open right now, right? And we're going to continue on with this Mercury retrograde cycle, and eventually you get this. Here we go. At 5 degrees of Taurus, Mercury stations direct, and as you can see, the moon is coming around now. So this is almost about a month from now. And then eventually the moon, if you notice here too, the Jupiter is now at the 29th degree of Aries, the same place that we had that eclipse. And the eclipse, that's going to be something to watch for as well, because now Jupiter is ingressing at the very place where the eclipse happened, and then Jupiter will now be in Taurus, right? And now Jupiter is going to be in Taurus, and as this transit happens, the moon is conjunct Jupiter on May 17th. And as I have said in my other videos, Jupiter is a teacher. So if you are a meditator and intuitive, get quiet and listen on May 17th to what Jupiter has to say, and you will not be disappointed. I can tell you that much. Jupiter will deliver if you know how to listen. Right? Now, as we continue to go with this, the moon is coming together with the sun to create a new moon, the new moon will be at the 28th degree of Taurus. And then as we continue on, we can add something that I haven't mentioned now. At some point in time, Venus has ingressed into Cancer, and Mars at this point is just at the 0 degree of Leo. And this is May 20th, 1 month from now about. I will go over the transits for Venus and Mars in other videos though, but right now we're paying attention to Mercury. But this is a different situation because Mercury is hosted by Venus, and Venus is in Cancer, and it will be a different situation. But again, I'm not going to go into too much detail. I'm just showing you what it looks like. And then, so Mercury, if we remember when Mercury stationed retrograde, it stationed retrograde at the 15th degree. So this is still the shadow phase, right? And then, as we just keep going with it, here we go. On May 31st, Mercury will be clear of the retrograde. It will come out of the retrograde shadow. The planet Uranus will now be at the 20th degree of Taurus. And Jupiter will be conjunct the North Node. As we continue on, this is clearing out, this is more than the retrograde at this point, but I thought I would include this part at least, that eventually we have Mercury conjunct Uranus in Taurus at the 20th degree, which is the first degree of the third decan of Taurus, which unfortunately is we're getting into difficult territory with Taurus, because eventually, I remind you that Algol, the fixed star Algol, represented by the myth of Medusa and the Medusa's head, sits at 26 Taurus, right? Luckily, 20 degrees of Taurus is 6 degrees away, so it's not right on where Algol is, but the presence of Algol in this area of the zodiac makes it not the easiest territory. However, well, what can I say? There are, this is kind of what we're getting at here, is that we have a moment today as Mercury stations retrograde where we feel like we're on the verge of some kind of a breakthrough, but Obviously, it's not happening right now. You don't have to tell me that, right? You guys should know that this breakthrough that we all feel like we're about to have is, we're gonna have to slow down, we're gonna have to be patient, we're gonna have to take it easy and not rush things, right? And then eventually, when Mercury conjoins Uranus, I think we can expect to see something happen, but I just want to say that we're sowing the seeds for the future, right? We need to be conscious with each step we take along the way that we are doing this all out of love and kindness and respect and generosity, and not out of ill will or hatred or bitterness or whatever, right? We have good principles with the choices that we make. But you don't need me to lecture you on this. Um, so I thought I would just give you this much, anyways, to show you what Mercury retrograde looks like and the interesting dynamics with Mercury and Uranus. All right. Thank you very much. Please like this channel. It helps this channel to grow. Good day.